I don't really care. Like, I ain't gonna lie to you, bro. I kind of like promiscuous women, so I don't.
All right, fuck the Adam 22 thing. The Suns thing when she said she let the whole team run a train on her.
That was her friend.
Whew. Hey guys, welcome to Little Black Book 91. We're going to talk to you guys about a really, really difficult topic here, right? I don't know if you've ever been in a situation or a season where, you know, sex became your predominant language, where sex became your predominant action. You use sex to cover up your pain. Maybe you're somebody who enjoyed the freedom of sex, but, you know, you found out that, you know what, can't lie to you, it feels like you're covering up something. Or maybe you feel like sex is your liberational tool, you know? You're free to do whatever you want to do, so sex should be a part of that as well. I understand that perspective as well. Or maybe you're in a season where you realize that, you know, when you get into relationships, that sex is probably the first thing that actually happens, but the relationship quickly fizzles out, right? So it's an amazing start. Very fast, very pacey. It's exciting. It's entangling. You might even think, you know what, this could be the one. And after a few months, it unravels, right? And you see a pattern of that behavior, right? Or maybe you're in a situation where you can lie in bed with somebody, be vulnerable and be naked, but when it comes to laying out the thoughts in your mind and unwrapping some of the emotions and the feelings that you actually have, you struggle to do so, right? So you're giving out presence of your body, but you can't give the gift of your mind to anybody because you feel scared to be vulnerable with people. Maybe you're in that kind of season. If you're in that kind of season, this is going to be the video for you, because Clay, let me tell you something. This is a brother who is in that season. I was in that season not long ago where all I could think about was sex. You know what I'm saying? Breakfast, lunch, and dinner was always thinking about sex. And it was easier to do sex than it was to be vulnerable and naked emotionally with people. Much more easier. That language I understood. And I think Clay's in that same season as well, which is why he was dabbling with Selena Powell. But I'm going to actually break it even further down because there's so much more that happened in this podcast I'm going to highlight to you. But I'm going to use it to also explain how a lot of this, what we're talking about, is self-abandonment and emotional neglect. Let me say it again for you. A lot of what we're talking about here is self-abandonment and emotional neglect. Many of us have been emotionally neglected from our childhoods, and many of you may disagree. You say, look, I had a great childhood. But when we look back, were you safe? Did you feel safe to share your emotions? Was it a safe place to share how you felt? Were you punished for when you shared how you felt by withdrawal of a parent, right? Or a parent neglectfully not being able to converse with you when you shared your emotions because they would share their emotions instead of them actually receiving yours? Right? Was you have a parent maybe that was always yelling, shouting, screaming, that made it unsafe for you to share your feelings? Did a parent ridicule you, or maybe overly criticize you, right? Making that emotional safe place uncomfortable for you to actually really share how you felt. And you probably might have experienced what we call emotional neglect, right? The ability here in the situation as emotional neglect is simply that, you know, it involves a pattern of behavior or omission that doesn't allow a child's emotional needs to be met at a level where they can thrive. That's Psych Central. So if you know about them, Psych Central are really powerful as well. And then we can talk about self-abandonment, which is just abandoning yourself and your needs and your wants and your desires. And it can be classed as a form of self-sabotage, and you'll downplay your needs and your wants, your desires, and elevate someone else's. And that's where sex actually comes in, because a lot of people, including myself, become very heavy pleasers, even in the bedroom. But a lot of it also, too, I found out for myself during a period of 3 years when I was in Egypt. If you don't know what Egypt is, it's a place of bondage and slavery. Whilst I was there for 3 years, I learned a lot about sex and communication, and also about my own behavior. I found it very easy to try and please the other party. In fact, I reveled in that space. I loved it. I enjoyed seeing you happy. And there's a beautiful thing about that, right? Because you're in the place of servitude. But I realized it was very difficult for me to ask for a return on certain behaviors, like oral sex. I wouldn't ask for it. It wasn't really a thing I was enjoying that much. It's not my favorite thing for me personally when it's done to me. But I realized actually it's because I don't like being served. So I avoided oral sex being done on me, because in reality, I don't like being served, because I wasn't in tune with my needs, my wants and desires. I was unable to voice them. I had a boundary issue, and I also had a self-abandonment issue, right? Being unable to express and abandoning your needs, your wants, and your desires, and putting others before yours, okay? You ignore what you actually need, and knowing what's good for you, you can't help but choose what's wrong for you. We're going to break this video down because there's a lot more clips I'm going to show you from this particular video that should speak to you in large, right? That this situation you're seeing with Clay and maybe what you're going through, sex in itself is a beautiful thing done within the confinements of a marriage. The Bible says that the marriage bed is undefiled. But when we have a pattern of behavior where sex becomes our predominant language, it's often an indication for the emotional needs that are not often being met. We use sex to try and manipulate. When I say manipulate, just run with me. We use sex as a way of procuring, I should say, not manipulate, procuring our needs through that. But the reality is sex can't fix those needs. They're emotional. And while sex can touch those areas, they don't fulfill those areas because they're emotional needs, not sexual. So it fills us up for a little while, the desires and being wanted and being taken care of. But once that session is over and you walk about your business, you have to go back into that space of, well, my emotional needs are not being met still. Right? We're going to break it all the way down, I promise, okay? All right, so make sure you do me a massive favor. Like it, share, subscribe. Click on the bell button for notification of uploads. We appreciate you. We want to create this kind of great content, so we want you guys to be a part of this family as well. If you haven't joined the membership, join the membership. It's £1, it's $1. We do some membership lives every other week, every 3 weeks or so. And we want to be able to do some great content for you guys coming up as well. Watch out also, because I'm going to be doing some exclusive Patreon 1 week calls. So I'm going to be doing an exclusive group for maybe like 30 people, maybe no more than that. I want to do a weekly call every week. It won't be free again, but it'll be subscription based. So you can join a call, and we're going to be doing topics like this every week because I want to be in a space of bringing healing to people. I want people to be equipped, ready to go to war against themselves and get themselves out of Egypt. We don't need to be there. We need to cross that Red Sea and get to the other side of where the promised land is, right? Where there's a land flowing with milk and honey, where we are blessed and we're able to share our thoughts and our feelings and express our needs to our future partners and future relationships as friends, family, etc., etc. It's always a tie-in. So, all right, we're gonna have some great conversation. Make sure you like, share, subscribe again. Let's get deeper. Alrighty. Okay, cool. So let's get into this, right? You just heard him say, you know what? He likes promiscuous women. I'll play the clip again so you can actually hear what he actually said, like, right? And you know, before you judge him, let's just break this down a little bit before we do, right? Let's go here. There we go.
Well, I saw the Adam 22 thing, but I don't really care. Like, I ain't gonna lie to you, bro. I kind of like promiscuous women, so I don't.
All right, fuck the Adam 22 thing. The Suns thing.
Okay, so sorry about the language there, but he says, listen, I like promiscuous women. I like them. And the reason why he likes promiscuous women is simply because they match him on the level that he's at. They meet his needs at this point in time of sex because he's using sex as the vehicle to procure the feeling and the want of being wanted. Because when we are emotionally neglected from child, right, we are seeking attention. And not in a bad way, being an attention seeker, but we're seeking some form of attention to be able to replace what we did not have as children. We did not have the safe space to be able to emote, and it probably wasn't a safe place physically as well. If our parents abandoned us or left us, or, you know, we spent a lot of time on our own, you know, if you spend a lot of time in your own bedroom or your room and you didn't really have much interactions with your parents or whatever, they might have called it independent, but reality was you were abandoned. And a lot of times, due to the fact that we've been abandoned, there's a self-abandonment that usually happens when we get into adulthood, right? See, abandonment, I heard it said this, that abandonment is for children, but being let go of or being left is for adults. We don't get abandoned as adults. We get left behind. And so that abandonment is speaking about the child in you that has been abandoned at that age. And at that age, when you were neglected, your emotional needs were not taken care of, you had to find a way to survive. And so what ends up happening is, instead of actually voicing out how we feel, because a lot of times we feel scared to voice out our vulnerabilities or what we want, we use sex as a way of retrieving some of that feeling that we're looking for, right, that we missed in our childhood. Okay, so him saying obviously he likes women that are promiscuous, he's not lying. He wants women that are promiscuous because what it does to him is that it enables him to have easy access to people because they have boundary issues. Why? Because oftentimes when people are in a place of sexual liberation, really and truly, in a lot of cases, not everybody, but in a lot of cases, it's because they too are using sex as a vehicle to retrieve what they must get to, because it's also oftentimes some form of neglect or some form of deficit that they're trying to fill through the sex. They're trying to fill some type of feeling through the sex. Maybe they were lonely. But actually, a lot of the loneliness we're talking about is because we're not emotionally connected to people, because we're not emotionally connected to ourselves. Okay? And so when you have an emotional disconnect with you, you're not very good at connecting with yourself and sitting with your own emotions and sitting with your own feelings. What tends to happen is we tend to also disconnect in our friendships and we create distance. This is what oftentimes creates the loneliness. That feeling of being lonely, because what happens is we are disconnected from our community. Do you get what I'm saying to you? We are disconnected from our community. This is what creates the loneliness, and that creates the urge. I don't want to say urge. You already have an urge to want to be with somebody. Let's be honest, right? I think most human beings would say that they want a partner, a life partner, someone they can do life with. The Bible says it's not good for man to be alone, so I'm with that, right? But there's an extra urge that comes through that loneliness of wanting and desiring now of that opposite sex to fill that hole that we have that becomes very intense, right? Lust, if you want to call it as such, right? Almost becomes, okay? Okay, so I'm going to skip a little bit backwards, and we're going to go just to what he said here about when he went on the show, because I think it's interesting. Listen to this.
Outcome. Mm-hmm. But I did think, how come no one noticed certain red flags? You were on a beach in DR and ordered hot soup. I was like, red flag.
Well,
as soon as you finish,
that's I'm Guyanese, man.
It turns out that eventually he's not really a one-woman man kind of person, right? He's not a one-woman man. But then he went on a show to see if he could be that kind of guy, right? Because he wanted to be that guy. He wanted to emulate what he was, what his friend had done. He wanted to emulate, I guess, what he had not necessarily seen with his dad, but he wanted to have that. But the problem was that he'd been trained not to have that. He'd been trained to deny those actual feelings and desires. And because he knows that he has an ability to self-sabotage due to the fact that whenever he wants to be able to a one-woman man, something in him clicks and speaks into him and says, yeah, do you know what? This ain't for us. And what speaks in that moment, if you're somebody who struggles with that kind of relationship where you want to be one person, what's speaking to you is your fear. And where the fear is coming from is usually a shame or a guilt. And that shame or guilt usually sits underneath that fear. And because we're afraid of being vulnerable, we're afraid of opening ourselves up and opening our heart to somebody else, we're afraid of actually being able to say, you get to have my heart in your hands, and we're afraid to give over that control. We then build these kind of mechanisms that kind of protect us from actually being quote unquote hurt. So having multiple people that you talk to in a romantic sense, knowing that you actually like that one girl and you don't really like the others, it's one of the ways of a self-defense mechanism. It's like, if I spread my eggs around, then that means I don't have to put all my energy into this person. That means my hope and my dreams don't go into that person. Actually, I'm spreading it thin. That way, if I'm disappointed, I'm not completely shattered, which in some sense makes real sense. But in reality, it's also a fear. And when we talk about love, the Bible says there is no fear in perfect love. And so whenever we're trying to love and you put fear in there, it starts to be counterintuitive. And we start to do things that are counterintuitive to what love actually is. Love is kind, love is patient, love is enduring, love covers a multitude of sins, love doesn't boast, love is not quick to anger, okay, right? When you start thinking about how love is in that particular aspect, right, then you start to realize that fear, shame, guilt, embarrassment, those things that we saw with Adam and Eve in the garden, the moment that they felt that those particular emotions, they ran and hid themselves with fig leaves. They actually the fig leaves, I think, speaks about how they armored themselves. They covered themselves. And so they were afraid of being naked and vulnerable. They now became aware of this. And a lot of us, when we get into love, when we get into relationships, we now become aware we're naked. Cover myself up so that you can't hurt me, right? So as you heard him, right, we've heard him promiscuous woman. He's now not a one-woman man, okay? And it's the inability to be actually able to emotionally connect, because in order to have a monogamous relationship, we're going to need openness. We're going to need openness. We're going to need vulnerability. We're going to need to be able to be emotionally connected. We're going to need some dependability and reliability, right? But sometimes what happens also is we're afraid because we know what's lying ahead of ourselves, which is we sometimes become overwhelmed by the emotional demand, and we'll get there in a second or two. I want to go to the next part, because I want to get to this part where he speaks about this. This is really intriguing. I want you to listen to this. This is really intriguing. Listen to this aspect of what he says as well.
And the young lady you were in Belize, what is that?
We cool, man. It was.
You understand how if you take a girl on a vacation to Belize, and spend days on a beautiful island, like you saying we cool. In her mind, she's probably feeling like you're her man.
Yeah.
You understand? Like you can see how a woman would feel like that.
100%.
I mean, but no matter even you can lay it down all you want, like, yo, we just going as friends, have a good time. That shit goes out the window once that water and that sun start hitting.
Yeah.
And it's just a different thing.
That's my toxicity though, bro. I like when women are like
and like
my
mom on camera
and all with me. You know what I'm saying? Like when I like first date vacations sometimes. It heighten it up. It make it, I don't know, like.
So he just said here, he said here, he likes women that are in awe of him. Now that's quite interesting. When he says he wants women that are in awe of him, why? Because it makes him feel good when they worship him, where they adore him, where they uplift him and exalt him. Why? Because he never had that as a child. See, as a child, what you're supposed to be loved and cared about, emotionally supposed to be taken care of, you're supposed to be loved for just being you. You don't get loved because you do. You get loved because you are. And the Bible lets us know that we become sons of God through the fact that we have faith in Jesus Christ. We're now seated in heavenly places. And now we almost become his beloved because of who is inside of us. So my position in the kingdom of God is assured, and I'm loved because of who's inside of me. So it's not about what I do. See, the gospel is not about works. It's about grace. It's about what God, who that person is, Jesus. And so in the same measure, when it comes to a family, right, because we're also adopted into the kingdom, right, the same measure, when you're in a family, what you want is you want to be loved for just being you, for being. And so that awe of him being something, right? And so in the same measure, what happens is because he can't get that from childhood, because remember his dad was a cheater, and not only was he a cheater, he was taking him on trips and missions. Not only was he taking him on trips and missions, he didn't have to look his mom in the face and lie and hold back information, right? And his needs probably were not being met in that particular space by his father, right? That's another story for another day. But it makes it, but in the sense of he wants women to be in awe of him, to be in love of him, right? And so all of this is a reality that, you don't necessarily feel good about yourself. Your esteem is in the bin, because what you really want is women to make you feel good instead of you actually feeling good already. See, there's a difference. You want women to make you feel good. And I even realized myself, and I told you earlier on about the servitude and sometimes being a bit of a people pleaser, even in the bedroom area, right? When it comes to sex, that aspect is also because I also get so much joy from seeing them joyful. But part of that also is that I don't know how to be joyful on my own sometimes. So my joy comes from making others joyful. That actually is an esteem issue and a self-worth value issue, right? That I didn't even realize until I was doing the research. Like, damn, I got work to do. Right? So when you are in a place where you want women to be in awe of you, of course, it's a human trait. We all want to be celebrated and loved and cared for. But like he said, he wants women to be in awe of him. But if you listen to him, he doesn't do relationships for a long time. He took that girl to Belize and took on a first date. He loves that aspect of a relationship because it's brand new. And when it's brand new, I don't know who you are for real. Right? Oh, my camera's gone here. Hold on.
I don't know, bro.
I'm wild, and that's something I could never do that.
Most of my relationships,
the first day.
Most of my relationships in my life have been long distance relationships. Though.
Okay.
I haven't had too many relationships with the girls in my city. So like,
but why is that though?
That's something I gotta unpack, bro. I don't know. I think that's something that I've always had. The women that I fell in love with have always been women that are not in my city,
And there's a reason for that, right? And here's a reason why. Because again, we're talking about emotional connection and being connected to someone. The reality of the situation is oftentimes people like long distance relationships when they have a pattern of long distance relationships, because it's the best way for them to be able to emotionally reset themselves, right? Because if you're always in the same city or same location, right, you have an emotional demand placed on you physically, meaning that person probably wants to see you once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, maybe. There's an expectation and a demand of your time and your energy. But when you're somebody who is always constantly avoiding your emotions, which people who don't really like, people who like long distance usually are avoidant people. They like that because it enables them to be able to drift away. It enables them to lean outwards. It means that the emotional demands placed on them that are requiring them physically to give energy to oftentimes can be put at a distance, right? That's one aspect. The other aspect that we have to look at is that having close proximity of relationship also means that, you know, you can be seen, right? And you see that the mystifization of being at a distance suddenly goes out of the window. If you're close quarters, that person can have enough time to see you for more than what you're giving them because they're spending time with you. But when you're somebody who is in a long distance relationship, it's always fresh, it's always new, because again, you get to reset and you get to see each other maybe 2-3 weeks and it's brand new again. And it's like the new process again. And what it does is that for him in anyway, is that part of it makes it easier to be able to put up the facade, which is if you get past the facade and you really get to know me, you might reject me. And if you reject me, then that's gonna be very painful again once more. So long distance creates the distance that's needed in order to have the longness of the relationship. Don't quote me on that. You're not ready for that, cuz. Okay. I think Rory actually goes on to explain it actually even better than I can.
And trust me, I want a chick that's in my city.
You lived in Atlanta.
I lived in Atlanta. I lived in Charlotte.
You lived in Charlotte.
Lived in Jersey.
You're from Jersey.
From Jersey, yep.
Those are some cities with some pretty, I guess, decent options of women.
Yeah.
But you can't seem to find one in your city.
Sometimes, bro, you find one and they don't want you like that, and you take a L where it's like, you fall in love with someone and the situation just don't work out, and you got to bounce back, bro. And then one thing I don't really be sitting in my heartbreak. You know what I'm saying?
Now, he says obviously he's had a lot of heartbreaks, and more than likely he's probably telling no lies, right? The rejection has been from childhood and it's now here, right? When I say rejection, the emotional rejection, right? Because he didn't have a safe place to be able to land. It's almost like when Noah it was in the ark and he sent the dove outward and said, listen, go out there, see what it's saying. And when a dove returns, it tells you when a dove returns, it tells you, okay, well, the water hasn't receded, so it's not safe, right? But if the dove goes out there and stays out there, it's safe, because the dove has found a resting place. And very much the same thing in relationships. The rejection that we go through and experience oftentimes, okay, we go out there and we find no safe place, so we return, right? And for him, his safe place is keep creating a long distance relationship, because once you get close and you're in the same city, he's already experienced some heartbreak. So again, it's going to reinforce the idea, keep people at distance. It's going to reinforce the idea, keep people at bay. It's going to reinforce the idea, don't get too vulnerable with them, right? Because people in your own town, and the Bible says that there's no honor for the prophet in his own home. Yeah, sometimes, you know what? Sometimes relationships don't work out in your own hometown. You got no honor, no honor in that town. I want to play it a little bit further because I want to get to this point where I think this is really powerful on what he actually says. As well. Let's get to here. Yeah.
Over there,
play and
it's
that might be something that I think in my brain. I'll be feeling like, bro, I'm a lover boy, bro. I do want love, bro.
So you're only 30 years old, bro.
Yeah,
that's pretty young.
I don't know if
I'm a
lover boy.
Nah, for real though, bro. I'm like, listen, I'm a lot of things, bro. Like I'm not one thing. Like I could be a walking contradiction.
And he's not lying to you. He is many things, because again, a lot of times we compartmentalize our mindsets, but also because there's multiple facets to us. But the reality of the situation is sometimes there's no synergy between the facets because of the fact that we've had to do what we've had to do to survive. And so in order to survive, what ends up happening is you create departments for different parts of you. It's the safest way in order not to feel rejection in one part, to feel it all the way through. It's like it's almost like a ship, or a ship which has the doors that come down, right, for different departments. So if the back of the ship is flooded, it can't affect the rest of the ship. That's almost how we end up doing it when you are an avoidant. You kind of compartmentalize when you're used to not dealing with your emotions very well, so that you can actually, if anything happens like rejection, well, that's on this part of the brain, so it doesn't have to affect me in this part of my life. That's that part of my life that doesn't affect me on this part of this life. It's a way again of self-defense, making sure that you're not being broken too much, right? So that's a really important aspect that he's talking about. But he just said he's a lover boy. And many of you are lover girls and lover boys, and you also feel like, you know what, I'm a lover girl, lover boy, and I want love. And you're right, you do, but you sabotage yourself, because the very thing you actually want is the behavior you're not showing. Right? I've been there, so I know. right? The thing that you actually want, you self-sabotage, because once you start seeing how long the journey is and the work you got to put into it, you're not ready to do the work just yet. You know it requires you to also change the way you behaved previously. It means taking a new road than you did last time, but the difficult part of that is, that requires energy to change. And remember, not only does it take energy, it requires emotional energy to be able to address the emotional issues that you have already. Because in order to be the lover boy, you need to be connected to self and connect to your emotional needs and be able to sit in it. You need to be able to do that, right? You need to be able to do that. Sorry, I'm about to play the thing that I don't need to. So without that, yeah, you're going to find out that he's going to struggle to be that lover boy that he actually really wants to be, okay? And as I said, love... there's no fear in perfect love. All right. The pattern of short relationships. I want to just get to this as well, so you can actually see what he says here. I think this is really powerful as well.
It wasn't just some fuck around thing, but it was very quick.
Yeah.
It was a heightened 2 months where we thought this could be for 10 years, and then I just went on and continued.
Now, really,
like a fucking psychopath.
Nah, that's a fact, bro. Like, I don't want to do that, but I definitely got into that pattern. You know what I'm saying? I definitely 100%. So I haven't unpacked that yet, so I don't really have an answer for you on that, because that could be true.
Not even a question, just a
that definitely could be true. And I probably need to bring that up to my therapist. That's probably something that I do that's wrong. You know what I'm saying? But like, I probably do like those quick love type of stuff.
You never have to deal with the negative.
Yeah.
Like you never have to work through things.
That's the first time I ever heard that.
Let me get the best out of this person. They're getting the best of me too.
Let me
They're
find
not
out
even
Rory,
seeing
my
bullshit
therapist.
Oh no, he's a manipulator too. Y'all just
And Rory has, I think it's Rory, I hope it is anyway, has explained it perfectly, right? The reality of the situation is the reason why relationships are short in span, and the reason why you like your relationships that short, is because once you get past a certain point, the person's going to see you for who you really actually are. Once you get past a certain amount of time, that person's going to see beyond the best facade that you have and your best clothes that you're putting on, and putting on your best foot forward and going past basically that mask that we all have, right? We all have that initial representative, and once you break that, go past that, who are you really? And so keeping relationships short saves the issue of the person seeing you for who you really are. Again, it's a vulnerability issue. It's an issue with actually being okay with who you actually are behind the mask and the representative. So keeping relationships short, keep them fun, keep them funky, keep them fresh, keep them enjoyable. But once we get into the mundane aspect, the routine aspect, where we get past the part where we hit a plateau and it's no longer the enjoyment and from the initial spark of knowing you, we're going to see you for who you really are. And a lot of people are not ready to do that, because when they look at themselves in the mirror, they're not comfortable. They're not comfortable with who they are. So they keep relationships short so they don't have to deal with the maintenance of a relationship, because once again, it requires emotional energy to do so. It requires you to be emotionally connected to yourself to do that first. Okay? All right? So you have to be able to allow yourself to feel and heal from some of the toxic methods of coping with your emotions. Okay, and demystify the process of that initial, what we call that initial, infatuation stage when it comes to a relationship. Okay, and so when you keep relationships short, if you've got a pattern of relationships that are short, more than likely you're abandoning or you are causing sabotage when the relationship hits a certain point, because you don't want them to see you for who you are. Right. Last 2 points. And I love this point that he made about don't have to work things through. Why? Because it becomes uncomfortable. Working things out requires you to actually be present. It requires you to be present and to bring your presence to the table. You can't just work things out by just going, I'm done with it, or I'm finished. You can't discard it like that. You actually have to sit in it. And that means also taking on some accountability, but also taking on some critique. And hearing things that you need to improve. Some of us don't like that, right? I know that sometimes I can be a little bit fragile myself. I have to be aware of that. Sometimes you can be fragile and you don't want an issue where somebody's saying things about you and you're not ready to receive it. So it causes you to drift away from the relationship and be disconnected. Why? Because probably experience the fact that once the person who cares about you says something that is painful, you don't know how to sit in that negative emotion. The only thing you know how to do is to remove yourself from it. Okay? All right? So that's really important. And the last part is obviously the lust issue. We're going to get to there as to it. And then we'll do a part 2, because there was more to kind of drop this. I really wanted to break it all the way down for you guys as well. Listen to this.
Yeah.
So only thing I'm saying is that, bro, I can move in the light that I am, but I'm gonna be transparent in every step that I go about things. Like if I make a mistake, and I'm trying my best not to make mistakes, but bro, like if you a man of God or whatever, we are flawed individuals from the jump. So my flaws are going to be heightened more. And like I told you, Rory, like I do have a lust issue. I do have a women issue where I articulate that even on the show where, you know, before the show, I've always kind of talked to multiple women. And although I do want to be married, and which is why I went on the show, because I wanted to get myself in a perspective where I didn't have those factors. And when I was doing the show, I never even like talked to any woman. It was all AD. It was just more so of me doubting the step that I'm about to go towards. Like, am I really a one-man woman? You know what I'm saying? And truthfully, that's something I still struggle with today, and that's why I actually went to therapy. So, you know, even though I took this L.
So, like he said, he has a lust issue, right? And I think this is really powerful, the lust issue aspect, because I think what it just kind of highlights the fact that people are struggling with the lust issue because they haven't actually dealt with the root cause of that lust issue, right? We all want to have sex. Let's be honest. We all want a partner. We all want a partner that will love us, care for us, be there, you know, unconditionally. We all want that kind of thing, right? But the lust issue usually is as a result, is a branch, as a fruit, rather of the unaddressed needs that we haven't dealt with, right? That need and want to be wanted, desired, cared for, right? To be able to care for someone and love them and know that we're gonna receive that in reciprocation. It's usually as a result of our fear of our needs not being met, and then our inability to be able to voice that in some shape or form, or to be able to sit in that negative feeling in that moment that, hey, do you know what, I'm not gonna lie to you, I do feel a little bit lonely. Okay, let me look at my relationships. Have I connected with my friends this week? Have I spoken with my friends this week? Have I actually spent time with myself this week? Have I addressed some of the issues that I have within myself? Have I done that? Well, what we will do is we'll run outside and get someone to help us fulfill those needs in the bedroom. Right? But again, after you finish, you still feel empty. Why? Because you never actually addressed the root cause of those issues. Look, we're going to leave it here. We've gone long enough. If you're new to the channel, make sure you like, share, subscribe, click on that bell button. Look, we are doing coaching at the moment. We're trying to help as many people as we can. I'm booked up till June, and June is starting to come booked up as well. I want you guys to sign up. We're not charging a specific fee. What we're asking is whatever you feel the service is worth, when you get it, you pay that amount as well, okay? All right? So I want to be able to help as many people as well. And these are some of the things we're really addressing. It's the childhood traumas that are playing a role in the adulthood, right? And a lot of you are adultified because you've had to be an adult before your time. Whether you had to be the third parent, whether your parents want a safe space, or, you know, whether you went through something traumatic in your young stage. And sometimes traumatic doesn't mean huge. It just means whatever was too much stress for you to cope with at that point in time. Right? Whether you're dealing with rejection issues, whether you're dealing with, you know, a pattern of behavior, whether you're thinking right now, whether you're single, married, divorced, it doesn't matter what position you're in. All right, reach out to us, book yourself in on my calendar through the description box. Let's get to helping you, because I want to be able to bring in the past and the present and link them together and give you some answers and tell you this is how you're going to go, and equip you to go forth and prosper in your life as well. All right, so make sure you like, share, subscribe, click on that bell button as well for notification of the uploads. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you again soon.